One part that is something of geometry is something that we call trigonometry. Okay, so sometimes you guys might have heard trig or trigonometry. We're going to be talking about that. But for that, we need a right triangle. So let me come out with the right triangle here. So my writer is not working. My pen is not working, so I'm going to have to write it with my fingers. So let's see. So I need a right triangle. Let me write it over here. Now, I call it right triangle because one of the corners is 90 degrees. So let me draw my 90-degree triangle here. Now, I know when we talk about Pythagorean theorem, remember the a squared plus b squared equals c squared thing, so you guys learned that the biggest side of the triangle is called hypotenuse, and we're still going to call it hypotenuse. That is not going to change. So we're going to call this hypotenuse. Now, the other two sides, people call them legs. The legs also have their own name. One is called opposite, one is called adjacent. Now, opposite means far away, adjacent means next to or close to. So, for us to know which one is opposite and which one's adjacent, it depends on which corner we're referring to. So, I'm going to introduce you guys to a Greek letter called theta. Let me use red for this thing. Let's say in this corner, I choose this corner. So I'm going to put my theta here. Now, if I'm choosing this corner, this side right here is where we're going to call opposite. And this side right here is what we're going to call adjacent. Again, opposite means far away. Adjacent means next to or close to. Well, far away from the corner theta or close to the corner theta. That's that's how we're going to get it. However, if I was to choose this other side, let's say if I was to put my theta on this other side, then this will be my opposite. And this will be my adjacent. So the other two sides, one of them is called opposite, one of them is called adjacent, depends on which corner I'm referring to. In which corner do I set my angle theta? We're going to learn three different fractions. We call them ratios, right? The fancy word for fraction, it's ratio. We're going to learn three ratios. One of them is going to be called sine of theta. The other one is going to be called cosine of theta. And the third one is going to be called tangent of theta. Okay, those are going to be our three fractions. Now, our fraction, sine, we're going to write this as opposite over hypotenuse. So if I give you guys the measurements of sides and I ask you guys for sine, find out which side is opposite, which side is hypotenuse, and you go opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine, we're going to go adjacent over hypotenuse. And tangent, we're going to go opposite over adjacent. As a matter of fact, there's going to be an acronym we're going to use, which is going to be SO, CA, TOA. This is an acronym we're going to use. And if you guys look at the first part, so it means sine. Notice I'm going to use the first letter. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine, if I use like the first letter of each, is going to be cosine is going to be adjacent over hypotenuse. And for tangent, it's going to be tangent opposite over adjacent. So it comes in the order that we see them. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Some people even write a little fraction like this to help them. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. Now, one more thing I want to mention as well. When we read this, the word sine, cosine, and tangent, thinking of calculators mainly, the whole word is not going to fit in it, especially tangent. Imagine the word tangent in the key on the calculator. The letters will be very, very small. So what we're going to be doing is we're gonna simplify, we're gonna abbreviate the word to the first three letters only. So for sine, we're going to use the first three letters. We're going to S-I-N. We're not going to read it as a sin. It's still sine. It's just that we're going to abbreviate it to the first three letters. Cosine, I'm only going to use C-O-S, but I'm still going to read it as cosine. And tangent, I'm going to abbreviate it to T-A-N, but I'm still going to read it as tangent. So again, I'm going to use only the first three letters, but this is mainly because that for calculators, we don't fit the whole word. So we're going to abbreviate it into three letters, and that's how we're going to see it on calculator. So let's take a look at question number one. Actually, before I take a look at that, one more thing I want to emphasize is that here on my triangle on the left, I marked down theta. I mark down theta. Sometimes you guys will be given the theta mark. Sometimes you guys will not be the theta mark. You need to mark the theta, but I will tell you where to mark it. So let's take a look at question number one now. It says find cosine of C given the triangle. Enter your answer as a fraction or as a decimal. Run it to three decimal places. So where my angle C, that is going to be my theta. That's where my theta is. I know from these sides, the biggest side is my hypotenuse. I'm actually going to use just the letter H for hypotenuse. I'm going to say this measurement, 122, that's the hypotenuse, is the biggest side, is the side opposite from the 90 degrees, but is the biggest side of the three. Now the other two, 22 and 120, the other two values, one of them is called opposite, one of them is called adjacent. If I'm looking at theta here, knowing that opposite is the side that is farthest away, I'm going to say my 22 is my opposite and my 120 is my adjacent. So I label my three sides. That's the hard part we can say. Label. I'm going to start with the hypotenuse because it's the biggest side. Knowing where theta is, opposite is the far away, adjacent is the close one. And I remember from the acronym from SOHCAHTOA, from cosine, because it starts with the letter C, I remember I gave you ka, right, from SOHCAHTOA. And I said cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So I'm going to go, and I'm going to write this as 120 over 122. Now, looking at my answer, or looking at my question, it says enter your answer as a fraction or as a decimal, run it to three decimal places. However, if we're going to go as a fraction, make sure it's simplified. What do I mean with simplified? That I cannot divide them by anything else other than one, the numbers. In this case, 120 over 122 is not simplified. I can divide each number by two. So if I was to divide each number by two, that gives me 60 over 61. Okay. Now they don't have another common factor. 60 over 61 is correct. That's the least that I can go. So my answer as a fraction will be 60 over 61. Now you guys might be wondering, how am I going to type this as a fraction? Well, you're gonna go 60 backslash 61. So as a fraction, I'm gonna call this 60 over 61. Again, if you type in 120 over 122, Canvas will mark it wrong. And the reason why is because it is not simplified. Now, what if you don't want to simplify? You just want to do a decimal. Then do it from the beginning. 120 divided by 122. If you simplify 60 divided by 61, it's the same thing. I'm going to go 120 divided by 122. I'm going to round it to three decimal places because when I do this on my calculator, 120 divided by 122 gives me 0.98360 and other numbers. I want three decimal places because I said three decimal places on that. Instructions here. But then I look, okay, how about my fourth decimal place? My fourth decimal place is big enough, right? That's six because big enough means uh, five or more. So now that one is big enough. So this six is going to push this three over. So my answer will be 0.984. So if it is going to be a fraction, make sure it's a simplified fraction. If it is going to be a decimal, round it to three decimal places. Do take a look at the fourth decimal place because it might bring your numbers up. Okay, let's take a look at question number 2. Find the value of each trigonometric ratio. And then here it says cosine of x. I don't see a corner marked. I know from my three sides, my 41 is the hypotenuse. I know that because the biggest side, but I don't know where my theta is. Remember how I mentioned at the beginning of the video, sometimes you will be given the angle mark. Sometimes you have to mark it because I'm mentioning cosine of angle x. So at the corner x, that's where I'm going to put my theta. Now I need to label my sides, my remaining sides. I know my 41 is hypotenuse. So from far away, that's what we're going to call it the opposite. And then the 9 is going to be the adjacent. And I remember for C on our acronym, SOHCAHTOA, the one that starts with a C is AH. That means that cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So I'm just going to go 9 over 41. Now, 9 over 41, I cannot simplify anymore. That is as simple as we can go. So as a fraction, that's what I'm going to do. Remember, the way we're going to type a fraction, we're going to go 9 backslash 41. Now, if you want to do it as a decimal, because you're not so good at rounding, 9 divided by 41, according to my calculator, is 0.2195 and some other numbers. So I see that my fourth decimal number is big enough because it's 5 or more. So the 5 will push the previous number. But my 9 is at the highest that it can be. So then the 9 will push the 1 over. So my answer will be 0.220. So instead of being 0.219, it became 0.220. Now, because the last number is a 0, if you write 0.22, you're okay. Because the last number is a 0, so you can ignore it. Okay, so we're good with cosine. How about sine? Let's take a look at question number 3. Find the sine of x given the triangle. Enter your answer as a fraction or as a decimal, rounded to three decimal places. So I see that the x is this angle marked here, and that's basically where my theta is. The three sides, 85, 36, 77, the 85 is the biggest, so that is the hypotenuse. I see my theta is here, so far away, that's the opposite, and next to, that's the adjacent. I remember sine starts with the letter S, So for my acronym SOHCAHTOA, I know I gave you guys SO. And that stood for sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So looking at my labels here, opposite over hypotenuse, I'm going to go 77 over 85. Now I start thinking, can I simplify this fraction? There's nothing that goes into both. So fraction wise, that's as simple as we can go. 77 over 85. We're going to do this as a fraction. Now, if you want to do this as a decimal, you're going to go 77 divided by 85. According to my calculator, 77 divided by 85 is 0.9058 and some more other numbers. My fourth number is big enough if it's 5 or more. So the 8 will push the previous number up. So my answer will be 0.906. So as a fraction, make sure it's simplified. As a decimal, make sure it's to the third decimal place. Let's take a look at another example here. We're looking at sine. It says find the value of each trigonometric ratio. I see sine of A, and I don't see my corner mark. However, because they mentioned angle 8, at the corner A, that's where I'm going to write my theta. That's the angle that I'm marking. Now, the three measurements, 41 is the biggest side, so that is the hypotenuse. From theta, far away is opposite and close to is my adjacent. And then sine starts with an S. And then from the acronym SOHCAHTOA, the one that starts with an S is SO, which stood for sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So I'm going to go 40 over 41, right? Opposite over hypotenuse. Now we can simplify the fraction, do simplify. If you want to do decimals, just go 40 divided by 41. Now simplifying, there's no other number besides 1 that can go into 40 and 41. That means it is as simple as we can go. So as a fraction, I'm going to type this as 40 over 41. Now as a decimal, I'm going to go 40 divided by 41. 40 divided by 41. According to my calculator, it says 0.9756. The 6, which is the fourth decimal number, is big enough because it's 5 or more. The 6 will push the 5 over. So my number will be 0.976. Right? The 5 became a 6. Okay. Not too bad. So far I think we're good already with cosine and sine because we practiced those as well. How about tangent? Let me flip the page. Let me take a look at number 5. Let's take a look at tangent. Find tangent of A given the triangle. Enter your answer as the fraction or as a decimal, run it to 3 decimal places. Okay. The 3 values. 244 is the biggest. I'm already going to say that's the hypotenuse. Now my A, some people might say, well, the A looked like the 90-degree angle. Well, not quite. The thing is that it didn't fit on the picture. I know I zoomed in, so here I can see it, but on the paper, it didn't quite fit. But you guys can see that angle right here. It is marked. So that's A right there. A is this corner. And basically what that means is that's where I will put my corner, my angle theta, my Greek letter theta. Remember theta, it's a Greek letter that means measurement. So that's why we call it for angles. Now, because theta is at that corner, 240 is the farthest away. So we're going to call that the opposite. And that means that 44 is my adjacent. Now, tangent starts with a T. And I remember from the acronym SOHCAHTOA, TOA, that basically helped me to say that tangent is opposite over adjacent. So in this case, let me go 240 over 44. Now, I'm not going to ask you to change this to a mixed number. Sometimes the number on the top is bigger. We're going to have an improper fraction, and that's okay. That's okay. I'm not going to ask you to change it to a mixed number. However, I will ask you to simplify this. Now, 240 divided by 44 can be simplified. If I just type this in, if this was my question, and I type in 240 over 44, it will mark it incorrect because I can simplify this. Now, let me divide each of these by 4. I can divide each of these by 4. I know 240 divided by 4 is 60. So let me write this as 60 over 44 divided by 4 is 11. So as a fraction, let me call this 60 over 11. Again, I'm not going to ask you to change it to a mixed number. So I don't need to hear it 5 and 5/11s. I don't need to see it like that. Just 60 over 11. Now, if you don't want to simplify, simplifying is not our strength. From the beginning, 240 divided by 44, according to my calculator, sorry, it's writing weird, my pen here, 240 divided by 44, according to my calculator, it is 5.4545. Okay, so my fourth decimal number is big enough, 5 or more. So that means it's going to push the previous number up. So the 4 will become a 5. So my answer is 5.455. So as a fraction, 60 over 11, or as a decimal, 5.455. Lastly, for today, let me take a look at number 6 to finish this. Find the value of each trigonometric ratio, tangent of z. Looking at the three values, 24, 18, and 30, I'm going to say 30 is the hypotenuse. It's the biggest side of all. Now, I don't see the corner theta, but because we say tangent of corner z, at that corner, I'm going to mark that corner, and that's where I'm going to put my theta. So from theta, the side that is farthest away, that's the opposite, and then adjacent is the one next to. Now, tangent starts with a T, and I remember I gave you guys the acronym SOHCAHTOA, so this is TOA, which stands for tangent is opposite over adjacent. So in this case, opposite is 24, adjacent is 18. So I will write this as 24 over 18. If you can simplify, do simplify. If you want to do decimals, you can just go 24 divided by 18. Now, I guess my seer, my watch wants to answer. Okay, 24 over 18. Let me divide each by 6. So I'm going to do it as a fraction. I can divide each of these by 6. So as a fraction, I'm going to call this 4 over 3. Because 24 divided by 6 is 4. 18 divided by 6 is 3. So as a fraction, my answer is 4 over 3. Again, it is okay to have it as an improper fraction. I don't need to call it 1 and 1/3. Now, if you don't want to simplify from the beginning, we could have gone 24 divided by 18. According to my calculator, 24 divided by 18 is 1.3333, and a bunch of threes. My fourth decimal number is a 3, which is small because it's 4 or less. So I'm just going to ignore it. And I'm going to call this 1.333. Now, don't think that tangent, the biggest number, is always on top. It is not. It is not. Sometimes the biggest number is at the bottom. Okay? Sometimes we get an improper fraction, sometimes we don't.